Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. Mining risk management company Unomics has warned that South Africa could pay a heavy price if it shuns its well-established private sector. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer tells us more. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
Now, why does Unomics MD Cloud Basak believe that shunning the private sector could be a huge mistake for South Africa?
Well, he does a lot of work in Africa, and the current mood in Africa is to do everything you can to facilitate private sector investment. So he's saying here, other countries in Africa are going out of their way to spend money, and the World Bank is going out of its way to spend money, and the International Finance Corporation wanting to invest in creating frameworks which make it attractive for private sector investment in their country. And he says, here in South Africa, do we not know what we've got? We've got this great national resource. It's a private sector, a formed private sector that's strong, that operates very well. So don't try and go back to developmental economics and wanting a developmental state. That's gone out with the 70s because it's too expensive. Rather let the private sector do all the hard yards. They know how to do it. And if you want to get rid of your triple evils of poverty and unemployment and inequality, don't see them as causes. They are consequences of low investment, of lack of trust that the private sector has in your country. So he's saying, look, recognize that you've got in South Africa a formed and incredible private sector. Instead of clamping down on it and shunning it, give it a bit of encouragement, and you will reap huge rewards because you've got tax money that the potential to come through from that, and governments can use that for their main role, socio-economic development and schools and education and all the other important aspects of life. But don't try and get into too much infrastructure because it's too expensive. Your timing might be out. You end up with white elephants that the private sector can't use because it's unaffordable. And then you haven't done your main job of socio-upliftment.
He's also saying that the fiscus isn't affordable for a developmental state.
Our tax base isn't big enough. So what are you going to try and extract more and more tax, and then you weaken the private sector more and more, and you end up, with the catch-22. You're unable to meet your goals because you haven't got the proper funding base, and you can't borrow the money because that base isn't strong enough.
Now, Unomics is soon to release a study on African economic development, or the advancement of Africa through economic development. Can you tell us about that study?
Unomics under Claude Basak is on the cusp of releasing a study that involves 40 years of World Bank investment and experience in Africa to try and see, how this continent can be developed, particularly by resources, mining. So it's looking at the potential in Africa and how that can be turned to positive account. And he wants to bring out the study as soon as he can because the time is right at the moment. People are looking to trying to build Africa through its resources, its metals and minerals, and its agricultural resources. So it's an important timing that he's got there, and he's hoping that this will stimulate more activity towards investment in Africa, and also a realization in South Africa that there's plenty to still do here, and we could leverage off this well-experienced private sector to create wealth.
And to use 40 years of that research.
The 40 years will show how countries that were at the peak of their minerals boom, you could say, actually ended it all for decades by deciding, no, we want more rents, we want to nationalize, and then ending up with nothing and not being able to recover for 30 years. Whereas, the countries that have actually said, no, let the private sector do the work, they're doing exceptionally well. I mean, Botswana is one case, right on our doorstep here, how they encourage the private sector to take the risks, but they facilitate the private sector and try and assist wherever they can, and they get massive results.
Now, how does he believe that South Africa could once again use its mining as the main engine to the advancement of the economy?
You know, they can look at those 40 years of successes in Africa through a resource-based activity, and then also look at the 40 years of failure and take the best out of the successes and apply it here to turn around this mining industry, without which this economy cannot move forward. You know, this is the main engine of growth, and as he says, our agriculture is down, our industry is down. You know, with mining down, you're ending up with a services industry which is for the top echelon of your community. It's not going to provide those jobs. So mining is a potential massive engine of growth. I mean, it is our main engine of growth, but it's, you know, it's unfortunately a shadow of its former self, and it needs to be rebuilt.
So it sounds mostly like a policy issue then.
Policy is everything. He said, I mean, this analysis that he does of Africa shows that if the policy is correct and people manage their resources well, the country does well. The country's economy does well. If they ignore their endowment and don't manage it well and try to nationalize, the reverse is true. So policy is everything in his view, and they're looking for better policy in South Africa, which is promised at the moment, but it's being held back. I mean, it was supposed to have been done a year and a half ago, but you can see that the government has decided to hold back announcement of the reforms because of all the turmoil within the African National Congress and the fact that there's the Mangaung conference still to come through. They don't want to release that at this stage, although I'm sure they're ready to do so.
I look forward to when that conference is over and we can actually start to move forward a bit.
Exactly, and so 2013 looks like being a better year in America, you know, if the financial indications are that there could be a glimmer of hope of a bit of a turnaround, maybe not a total turnaround in the United States fortunes. You know, if we could also time our own turnaround here, we could start floating more boats with a global thrust.
Well, thank you very much, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Shannon.
That's the show for today. Join us again next time for more news and insight into what's happening in the mining world.